I'm in politics because that is the destiny and clear purpose for my life, to use the political platform and deliver economic solutions for this country.
Ally Angula, thank you so much for coming on Africa Speak. If I may ask, who is Ally Angula?
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for having me, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. So, Ally Angula is a God-fearing woman. She's a mother to 3 beautiful kids, and she is very purpose-driven. I don't do anything that does not result in an outcome, and I have got quite a bit of experience. I'm a chartered accountant by profession. I have served on many corporate boards. I've done a lot of things at a very young age. I was appointed partner at one of the big 4 international auditing firms, KPMG, at the age of 26. I became the youngest director on our Reserve Bank board at the age of 35. I've served on the corporate boards of Rossing, Old Mutual. I've chaired the board of NPTH, which has delivered the biggest payday for the Namibian government. I think we have clawed in about 10 billion worth of dividends from the MTC transaction that I personally handled and concluded with the highest level of integrity. So that's me. I'm very hands-on. I like to get things done, and I like to see a result. So wherever I feel my time is being wasted and my purpose is not being achieved, then I move on to the next thing to make sure that my purpose is being achieved. Because the time that we have, we think we've got lots of time, right? But we actually don't have lots of time. So I like to redeem time, and I redeem time by being very focused, very purpose-driven. So in short, that's Ally Angula.
Wow, quite interesting. You know, in we have this the famous African proverb that says, when you empower a woman, you empower the entire nation. So how do you see your presidential candidacy going to reshape the political landscape, especially for women in Namibia and the African continent at large?
So we have within us as women an inherent character, and that is the fact that we are nurturers. By nature, we are nurturers. You know, and when you're nurturing something, you're caring for it. You are grooming something that will blossom into something. You know, we bring up children. So the fact that you are here today at your age, looking very well looked after, you know, very focused on whatever it is that you're doing. Your mother is the one that nurtured you. The fact that I'm here, my mother is the one that has nurtured me. It's not to say that, you know, our fathers don't have a role to play, but it's just a quality that women have, which is the nurturing quality. That comes with the fact that we are empathetic. When we see something, we get touched by it. I mean, when you come across a lady that doesn't get touched by something, it almost seems like it's odd, you know? When you see a lady who's cruel, it's odd. We see it as being odd because within us, inherently, we are nurturers, right? We're caring, soft human beings. And I think at the time where we are now, our country needs it, because we're dealing with a nation that is traumatized. We're coming from a war situation, and we haven't dealt with the outcome of that. We're coming from where there was services that were not, you know, allocated to a large part of our population. We're coming from a history where people were dehumanized, you know. So to restore dignity, you need to be touched by when something is not right. And I believe that is what I will definitely bring into this presidential campaign, is that empathetic voice, that nurturing voice, to say we now need to heal as a country. And how do we do that? How do we ensure that we've got a government that cares for people? You know, how do we ensure that all of our policies are really aimed at making the lives of Namibians better? And I think we can become the showcase on the continent, right? We once had, you know, the tag of having our capital, Windhoek, as the cleanest city on the continent, right? And people used to come. I mean, I remember listening to a conversation of people from Rwanda that came to Windhoek to see, you know, this clean city on the continent. They've now taken that position because they've learned from us. And I think we can get into that position where we say, you know, we've got a small population, we've got the resources that we have. Now, how do we make sure that we extract as much as possible from those resources? Because we're not at the moment. And then deploying those resources, doing things for our people. And we can only do that when you get touched by the life that a person is living. And I've got a lot of lived experiences, so I can associate with the struggles of our business people. I've certainly tried my hand at business, but again, being purpose-driven, I was, you know, going into businesses that were going to be creating jobs. And I got affected by the fact that this country is actually not open to business people. You know, and local business people do not get, you know, capital that you need to have to be able to do the things that you need to do. So, so for me, which is why I am, for instance, pushing that we need to put up a fund that just funds local businesses, and quite a significant fund, so that we don't have businesses failing because there's no capital if they've got good ideas. And that comes from my lived experience. I've got the lived experience of I'm a divorcee. So I've got 3 kids that I'm having to bring up on a single income. And if you look at the number of households that we have in Namibia, we've got a lot of single income single income households and female-led households. So I've got that lived experience. I know what the struggles of Namibians are. I know what the struggles of our young people are. I'm very energetic. I'm not, you know, I haven't yet reached the, you know, the age where I say I don't have the energy, and certainly not where I cannot relate to the needs of young people. And that's what I believe I bring to this race, you know, an energetic, fresh voice, an empathetic voice. A voice that says, whatever it is that we are going to do, we need to put the Namibian people first. And if we put people first and we do the right things, it's very simple to do the right things. Yes, fixing a system that's broken and that's corrupt is, I'm saying it's not that it's simple, but doing the right thing is simple. So if you're guided by doing the right thing, you're empathetic to other people, and you put other people first ahead of yourself, we can definitely bring a different line of conversation during elections, and we can make elections about people again. And we can have Namibia being the showcase for how you can get some of these things right. You know, how do we provide housing for our people? We've got a small enough population to do that, to be able to showcase to the rest of the continent you can provide housing. You know, how do you provide healthcare rights if you deploy your resources and you just start to think, you know, what are the causes of some of the things that we're having kind of resulting and being the consequences of, you know, the people that are ending up in our hospitals and having to seek health services. One of it is poverty. We've got a high level of poverty. So what are we dealing with? We're dealing with alcohol incidences at our hospitals. A lot of our emergencies are alcohol related, right? We're dealing with people that are having to deal with TB, for instance. TB is a disease of poverty, right? You do not find that in developed countries. You don't.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. We're dealing with diabetes. You know, diabetes, if you just think of the amount of tombo, katokele that is consumed because people are not at work. And I've now traveled the country, so I've gone to a lot of these camps. It's brown sugar that they use to brew, right? Brown sugar, a person is there the whole day consuming sugar. Where are they going to end up? They're going to end up in hospital and dealing with diabetes. People are stressed because they're trying to figure out how to feed their families. Where's their next source of bread going to be coming from? Because they're not working. Where are they going to end up? Person is going to end up with high blood pressure. If you just think of the amount of high blood pressure medication that we are dispensing, but we are refusing to deal with the very, very basic. You know, we allocating huge budgets to the Ministry of Justice that is exceeding what we've put to the Ministry of Labor, for instance. It's even exceeding what we've put to the Ministry of Mines and Energy, right? It's 3 times that. It's 3 times the budget of labor. It's now 666 million or 686 million, if thereabout. And Ministry of Labour is 222 million. Mines and Energy, 386. So we're dealing with justice as a result of the outcomes of us catching a person who's gone into somebody's farm to take wood. And we are calling that theft, right? But they've got no other way of cooking, for instance. They go hunting on somebody's farm. They end up in jail. We've got all of these checkpoints just put up so that we can check what meat you're carrying in your car and whose farm you've poached that off. And then we're putting you in jail, and we're allocating lots of money to our justice system, to building more prisons, when we should just be saying, hang on, what's the causes of all of these things? If you're empathetic and you can actually hear, if you can feel with your heart and you can see and you can react to that, then we need to be dealing with poverty, and all of these other things get sorted out. So that's the voice that I believe I bring.
That's quite interesting, because that's quite interesting that you're actually coming, I think, from the nurturing and saying that as a country we need that nurturing phase. But I think it's now going to be difficult, especially to convince people, because I think we have that notion that a woman, you lead from the heart, and then a man leads from the brain. And then the thing, and then the thing is, are you really able to lead a country like from the heart? That's, I think, now the question is like, is that even possible to convince the people and the Namibian people, just for them to understand?
Look, there's a saying by Queen, I think it was Queen Elizabeth, and the first, and then she says, they were going to war, and then she says, I am in this feeble body of a woman, but I've got the heart and the stomach of a king, right? So, look, let's not judge people by the body that God has put them in. There's a reason and a purpose for everything. In the Bible, there's a powerful story, and it's actually in the Old Testament, which talks of Deborah. And there's a whole chapter that's dedicated to this judge. And in those days, judges were leaders of nations. And we are shown in the Old Testament, very early on in the Old Testament, before we get to all the kings and the rest, that a woman led Israel, right? And she led for the longest time. She led for 40 years. Sure. Right? And when they give a description of her, they say that she's a judge, she's a prophetess, she's a mother, she's a wife. So let's not judge who can lead based on the skin, and not based on the skin, but based on the body that the Lord has put them in. We should be judging leadership skills on, does the person have the ability to lead? Does the person have the willingness to serve? Does the person have the capability to do what they are able to do? And let that be the yardstick, and not whether, I mean, I've gone into boardrooms, and like I've just in my intro I've said to you, I've served on a lot of these corporate boards, and I've gone into boardrooms, and I've had to say to some of my, and I've been in situations where I was just the only male or the only female there. So I was when I said I was the youngest female partner at KPMG, I was the only female in the room. And my fellow partners were, there was one who was in his 30s then, late 30s, going into his 40s, but the rest of them were in their 60s, nearing retirement. My fellow partners were male and white. Right? And I've gone into boardrooms where, as an audit partner, I've had to present to audit committees and boards, right? And predominantly they were male. So this has been my world. It's and somebody one day asked me to say, but don't you have this? What do you believe that women pull themselves or pull each other down? I was like, Well, I've had career sponsors, and my career sponsors have largely been male, because that's just kind of the time when I got into my career. And I didn't have a lot of women, but the women that I did see were supporting each other. And in these boardrooms where I am, and I've learned to navigate kind of the male ego in a lot of these scenarios. There was one where I had a conversation with a fellow partner of mine, and I said, dude, you are exuding more emotions, double the emotions than that of a woman. And it's just, you know, when a man is, for instance, expressing himself, we say he's driven, right?
Yeah.
When a woman is expressing herself, we say she's aggressive. Yeah. And then when she's clear and decisive about the instructions that she's giving, then we say she's bossy. And then when a man is doing it, we say he's decisive. And it's just because we're not used to receiving instructions, for instance, from women. But this is the world I've lived in since I started my career.
Wow.
So this is not new, and I started my career 23 years ago. So I'm energetic, I'm youthful, but by all sense and purpose, I've got 23 years of experience. I've led teams. I've grown a firm from 7 when we had to re-establish KPMG, from 7 back to 70. I've led the energy and mineral resources portfolio. I've led our financial services portfolio. Being appointed by all these companies on their corporate boards, you know, the Rossings, the Old Mutuals, the Papkevitzes, the Bank of Namibia. You don't end up in those positions because you're thinking with your heart only. You end up in those positions because people trust your mind, right? They trust your ability to reason. They trust your ability to deliver, right? And lead strategically. I've led boards. I've chaired the board of NPTH. I've been vice chair on the board of NAMCO, and I've chaired NAMCO Trading. I've chaired most of the audit committees on all of those boards where you're dealing with risk. And when you're dealing with risk, you're not dealing with your heart. It's your mind. So for me, this whole notion of women are more, heart-led and not mind, I think is a fallacy. We do combine, and it's been widely researched that when you've got, for instance, and I'm now reflecting it on kind of the business world, right? When you've got women that are on boards, profits are up 30%. Yeah, because we just kind of push you to do the right thing. And you just have to do the right thing. Whether at that time you're being informed by your heart because you're nurturing and you're being empathetic, or you're being formed by your mind because the data just tells you different.
I see.
Yeah.
You said you have been in the corporate world for about 23 years, and you've been in the finance and all that, and now you are in politics. So you are running for the presidency.
Yeah.
So what changed? Like, what inspired you to actually switch?
Yeah. Look, I think I was geared towards that, right? Besides the fact that it is a law that nudged me that I need to consider the presidency. I retired from KPMG in 2013. And at that time, I was very purposeful about what I was going to be doing. And that was going to get into a manufacturing outfit of some sort that was going to start to create jobs, right? Now, when you get moved by what you are reading or what you've experienced, and you're doing something for somebody else, that kind of comes back to even what the presidency is about. It's about doing something for other people so that other people's lives can be better. And then at that time, we had invited the then Minister of Finance to my farewell as I was retiring from KPMG, and I received a call probably 3 weeks after I had retired, and I was still finalizing my research of, kind of what is this manufacturing project going to be about, or this company. And I received a call from the Ministry of Finance to say, we want you to come and consult for us on public expenditure management and reporting. And I said, but I've left to go and do this thing. But I knew I will require additional capital for it. And not just that, but I do have some time while I am finalizing the idea and putting all of the things together to submit to the development bank. And so I took on the consultancy at the Ministry of Finance. So I got into public service. And when I got into public service, I could then see kind of what are our challenges. And I realized that I could consult to the Ministry of Finance, but what's my impact really? What's the change that you can bring as a consultant? You know, you can't hold people to account. So if there's a person that you're expecting to do something and you're recommending for them to do it, and government is paying you as a consultant, and these people are doing nothing, you can't do anything, right? So, and again, purpose-driven, like if I feel like I'm wasting my time, I just very quickly say, no thanks, and I move. But then with this particular one, it really opened my eyes to some of the changes that we need to bring within the way that we're managing, for instance, the public purse, and the way that we're reporting on it. And at that time, my manufacturing project came to a point where I needed to dedicate more time to it, or else it wouldn't work. And I then, informed the Ministry of Finance that I will not be extending my consultancy, and they still kind of requested me, okay, but can we still get some hours from you? And I said, well, I can maybe try and see if I can dedicate 13 hours. That's the maximum that I can get in a month. And we kind of went on an arrangement like that for a little bit. And then I really got pressed for time. When we started, the factory was open, the shop was opened. I remember one day my team and I went for, I think it was 3 nights where we didn't sleep. And then after that, I still got called after 3 nights not sleeping to attend a meeting with the Africa Development Bank. And when I went there, I realized, your body can only carry you for three days without sleep. And then after that, you will crash even if you don't want to crash. So in that meeting, I was doing this, and I thought, this is not me. So I said to the Ministry of Finance, I need to focus on this thing. I need to get the shop up and running. So we ended the consultancy. And it's just because I didn't have enough hours in the day, literally didn't have enough hours in the day. And I went through a process where I kind of shared a lot of my boards as well. So any decision that was taken, if I was on a board and the decision was taken in South Africa and it was not taken by the Namibian board, then I shared that board. So again, purpose. Any board where we discussed something for 3 years and nothing was done, I shared that board. Because again, you're wasting my time literally, and my skill and my capacity. And you still pay me, and that doesn't sit right with me. So I went and I focused on the businesses. So I got to understand what are the challenges of local businesses, right? And then we went through 2015, 2016, horrible time. And I then had a call again with the people at the Ministry of Finance. And I said, okay, now I've got time because, we are struggling economically as a country. You guys know it. Can I come back and consult? And then we can kind of pick up from where I left off. And I was informed that the budget is tight, but there is an opening for this job that's being interviewed for, which they thought would be a perfect fit. And they asked me, would I consider, interviewing for the position of head of treasury, which is the head of state accounts. So I wanted to save my factory at the time. I wanted to save the 89 jobs that were at the factory. So I said, sure, let me do it. So I went and I attended an interview, and the last time I attended an interview was when I started my articles. Wow. So it felt weird, talking to a panel of people, but in the end, I was the successful candidate, and I got back into public service. And I realized driving from my house that all of our buildings that are in a state that's not a good state are all owned by the state.
Sure.
Yeah. So I realized we've got a stewardship problem. So I authored a document for the Ministry of Finance called How Do We Become Better Stewards? And I presented that to the people at the Ministry of Finance. And again, being purpose-driven. For me, you have to redeem time, right? And if you see that you've got a system that maybe is not built to work, I came to a point where I was having meetings literally every day around 4 o'clock. I would be at the Ministry of Works and Transport. And you'll be telling people, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And people will be going a totally different direction for obvious reasons, for their own reasons. And one day I stood in front of that building and I said, I'm here solving problems I didn't create for people that don't want the problem to be solved. On the IRD side, I'm fighting I literally had a reminder every 2 weeks, please send the VAT refund files or send the tax refund files, because I'm the only one that knew what was in the bank account. I received the bank statements of the country every day, myself and the ED at the time. They didn't know what was in our bank account, yet they did not send the refund files on time. In fact, they didn't send the refund files until you requested them to send the refund files. And I knew the challenges of business. If you keep away cash flow from business, so a VAT refund, a tax refund, you're killing that business, literally. So I realized that we've got a system, and I had to sign off every payment, even if it was 1 cent, €1, $1 cent. I needed to sign that off. Yeah, and every payment above 5 million, I needed to sign off. So you're leaving the office at 11 o'clock at night, and I'm not complaining for work. I mean, when I was at KPMG, we sometimes would leave the office at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. But then you realize the amount of money that we're shipping out of the country, because every foreign payment I needed to sign, and what we are shipping it out of the country for. And then you kind of challenge the system to say, can we not do these things in the country?
Oh.
Yeah. And kind of the answers that you get, look, we can, but I don't think Namibians have got the skill and the ability to do that. And you're like, they do, actually. You just need to trust them. Yeah. So I had a choice. Do you come and spend your life? And I saw the ED. She invested her entire life into the Ministry of Finance. Her child literally grew up there. But you are fighting against a system that's not built to work. So either you stay in that system and it's not built to work. You see the people that kind of circumvent the system. Even if you call in security for payments and you say, but I want to know, how did this guy get paid in 3 days? When everybody else is struggling to get their invoices vetted, to vet an invoice, make sure that it's in the budget, it's contracted for. That's 5 days at least minimum. How did this guy get invoice from another ministry through Ministry of Finance, 3 days being paid at the Bank of Namibia? So you can either stay in that system, but you know that the system is not going to bend because it's an entire machinery and it's not built to work, or you deconstruct that system, right? Now, to deconstruct a system where you're not the architect of it, or we don't have the, what's the right word? You don't have the rest of the people to do it. You literally, you need an army to deconstruct that system. And I had to make the tough decision to say, do I want to stay here, or is there a different way of getting to a better outcome for the Namibian people? And at that time, it definitely was not me staying at the Ministry of Finance. So I left. And we also had somebody in our family who was very, very ill. So it kind of made the decision a little bit easier, because we had at that time become medical tourists. And when the person then needed to go to South Africa for a while, we then went to South Africa, and I could not do my job, being in South Africa at the hospitals and being at the Ministry of Finance. So I then left the Ministry of Finance, but I was given a task to say, you are leaving, but you need to finish the budget. At least do that for us. So my original intended departure date was the 23rd of April, or the 31st or the 30th of April. It became the 23rd of August, so that I could see the minister through the budget preparation for that calendar year. And as I left, I had a conversation with a father-in-law of mine, and he said to me, "You left government, why did you leave?" And I explained all these things.
Yeah.
And then he called me the one day and he said, "Come, let me pray for you." And he prayed. And I got up, and then he says, "You're going to find your way back into government." I was like, "No, actually. I'm not aiming for that. That's not what." And then one day there's a friend of mine, and we're sitting, and he just goes quiet. And so I'm now thinking, did I say something wrong?
Yeah.
And then he says, "The Lord wants me to tell you that you're going to be the president of the Republic of Namibia." And I was like, "Oh, okay. That is not something that has ever even entered my imagination. It's not something that I ever thought about."
Yeah.
And then I had the dream. And the dream was on the 28th of August.
This year or which year?
2021.
2021.
Yeah.
So
and it was very clear that I had to consider the presidency. So I don't think you necessarily need to be in politics to use the political platform to deliver change. So I'm in politics because that is the destiny and clear purpose for my life, to use the political platform and deliver economic solutions for this country. And my experience in business will come to bear. My experience in my own business will come to bear.
Yeah.
My experience as a Namibian living here and trying to make things work will come to bear. And for me, it really is just, you've got no other platform that gives you the authority of an office other than politics.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Like I want to understand now, especially the dream that you had.
Yeah.
Because I want to understand how clear it was.
Yeah.
And like what was in the dream? Was God just telling you that you must take up this, or like how was it? Because now, like, yeah, I just want to understand like that prophecy.
Okay. Are you a believer?
Yeah, I would love to say this.
Okay. So there was a prophecy already, right? So somebody saying, "The Lord says, I must tell you that you're going to be the president of the Republic." Then the person that prayed and said, "I'm going to find my way back in government," although it was not even, I was trying to explain to them why I'm not in government and why some of the things just, were happening the way that they were happening, and it's not something that fits with my value set. It's just not. And then the dream. But in the lead up to the dream, and why I know it's the Lord that was talking to me, there's so many dreams that I had during that period. And in that, and not just during that period, but before then, maybe like a 3-year period leading up to that dream. And I would see these things playing out 3 months, 6 months. And when the dream then came, I knew it was Him establishing the fact that it was Him communicating with me previously, so that I know when I receive that dream that I believe it and I become obedient to His voice. Yeah. And now the details to the dream I will definitely share, but when the time is right.
Okay, interesting. We'll wait for that
yes.
time.
Yes. I will definitely share, but clear, crystal clear. I mean, I've even been shown in 3 dreams, this color, this heaven color, this heaven blue that I'm using on the T-shirts, that I'm using on the flyers, that I'm using on the posters. Yeah. Even where my house is, the street where I am, the corner before I get to my house, there's a house that used to have a maroon roof, used to have trees that you never would see that roof. I would see it from my house because my house is slightly elevated, but from the road you'd never see it. And when I came to make the announcement, because Mind you, I was living in Cape Town. I wasn't living here. I had relocated to Cape Town.
Really?
Yes. So that week when I came to prepare for the announcement, that roof, all the trees had been cut out. That roof had that heaven blue color. So every time I go home, and I've had a tough day, or somebody's just said some stupid comments, because there's a lot of people on this campaign that make very stupid comments, I will see that, come to the four-way stop, I'll see that blue and I'll say, Lord, okay, fine, this is you, so it's another day.
Sure.
Right? So I know very well.
Interesting.
I know very, very well. And the Lord works in his ways. So when he wills it, but before I leave this earth, I will have a chance to lead this country.
To lead this country. That is for sure.
That is for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I'm like looking at you right now and the track record that you have and the boardrooms that you have been in, you know. So I'm like, how do, as a young woman, how do I become you? Not like becoming you, but how do I come to that position where I'm able to be called into rooms, where people need me, where people like they can't, like they need me to do that certain work where I don't have to go for interviews, to go for what, and you know, just to be that, just to be that woman.
Yeah. Look, it's got its downsides. It's got its downsides, and I'll give you a little bit of advice on how you get to them. But it's got its downsides in the fact that now there is no position for me in this country because you've been in all these boardrooms. Yeah. So I remember I got called. I got a text message from one of the banks to consider applying for their CFO, and I was just like, doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right. It's almost though you have, there's no position for you anymore. So that's the downside. There's no position that seems to fit anymore. But how you get into the rooms, for me it's been hard work and hard work and hard work. At university, it started with, there was a big conference that was hosted here, and Namibia hosted it. And I applied through, I think it was the Economic Society. They had openings for people to just come and work at this conference, right? And I was doing the copying, running the photocopy machines. Now there were other students there as well. They'll put in the if the photocopy machine jams, okay, it jams and they'll sit. For me, I would open this thing. I didn't even know that this thing could open. I would open and make sure that, you know, we had all the copies. And I got that from my mom. My mom is so hardworking. So for me to kind of see things that need to be done and I don't do it is almost unnatural. So the way I got to go into all of these rooms is if there was work that needed to be done, I always volunteered myself. When I started my articles at KPMG, I had the great fortune of being put on the team of the managing partner. But when I grew up, I always would go, if there was a teacher, I would go to the teacher, almost sit there, because I was an introvert. And like it was difficult to relate to all the children. So my safe space was like the teacher. So my safe space has always been with the person who's not, who's I think older. Yeah. So I would go and I would stand at the door of Mr. Harold Swart and I'll stand by the door and I'll say, okay, so what needs to be done now? Mind you, I was like a junior and first year clerk. And by just asking, what can I do? You know, people will notice you almost immediately because not a lot of people do that. It's a very funny thing. So you just offer, if somebody needs a box to be carried, can I help you with that? You know, I'm done with what I'm doing. can I do the next thing? And I remember there was one particular audit, and it was a financial services company, and we had a very tight deadline. And I would sit there every day, 11, 12 o'clock at night, at the company. And I didn't realize how many hours I had put in until the partner on that audit came and gave me a check for $15,000. And I bought my first couch with that check. And the guy is just like, you worked so hard. I was like, really? And then my team was saying, this lady's on drugs, because my eyes apparently had gone glassy. But it was just from working hard. So it's just going that extra mile. And when you go the extra mile, there's no ways that people will not notice you. Now, the thing that we do is we don't go the extra mile. Then we grumble. This one told me this. This one is not nice to me. No. When you're in a work environment, and this is really what I'm feeling for our young people, because they're getting to work, some of them 25, 26. When you're getting to work for the first time in your life at 25, 26, taking instructions seems like the person is being horrible to you.
Yeah.
But when you start working 18, 19, that's the norm. 2021, somebody's giving you instructions, you learn to take instructions, because that's the way that you grow, right? So there's a lot of grumbling. Don't grumble, and offer yourself. Say, can I do that? I see you are trying to do this. I might not know how to do it, but I certainly have the time and the energy. Can I just help you with that? Just offer yourself. And do not be shy to find someone who is, even if it is 5 levels above you, and start to have conversations with them. Because then what you're doing is you become the reflection of the people that are around you. So the fact that I could not easily relate to other children, or even people that are kind of my age. My son, before I made the announcement, he says, my son said to me, Mom, you're going into this presidential race, so please go, your friends. I can't be your friend. Mom, go and sort out your friends before you get into the presidency. Because then you're going to have all these fake people coming to you and wanting to be friends with you. And because I've always related to people that are higher than me, and I've been comfortable to relate. Other than that, it's a very uncomfortable setting. So do not be afraid to reach out to people that are in positions where you want to be 5 years from now, 6 years from now. Reach out to them and say, can I have a coffee with you? And then if you've got that $30, that $50, pay for their coffee. Okay. That's it. It's just going the extra mile. And not being afraid.
Not being afraid.
Do not be afraid. Yeah. Just reach out. If there's a person who is in a position that you want to be 5 years from now. If there's a person who's in a room that you want to be, reach out to that person. And just say, can I treat you for a coffee?
I see.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And like you have found, I think, like your purpose, or like your understanding of what you really want to do from a very young age as well. So how do you because I think one thing that we also struggle with as young people is trying to find the path. What is my purpose? And where am I even going to be? And you find yourself in rooms or doing at university, studying these courses, and later on after a year you change and just up and down. So
for me, it was easy because I had a horrible physical science teacher. And one day I left my books. I had done my homework, I left my books. The guy didn't believe that I had done my homework. And I just tell it as it is. So I didn't think that when I said something, the guy was not going to believe me. But he didn't. He went on and he embarrassed me in class, and I just thought, you know what, physical science is not for me. And I ended up with a wonderful teacher in accounting, Mr. MacArthur. He was the principal then at St. Torres High School. And the way he taught, I never needed to study for accounting. I only studied in grade 10 because that grade 10, if you don't make it, then you would drop out.
Yeah.
So I only started in grade 10 to make sure. At university, I'll start studying at 3 o'clock in the morning and go and write the exams that day. Okay. So it was easy for me, but it was because of the teacher I had in accounting. He made it easy. So for me, I think it was easy, and then I became very comfortable within me that if this environment doesn't fit and it doesn't feel right, and it feels like I'm wasting my time here, then this is not where I need to be. And sometimes we hang around situations, we hang around people, we hang around jobs for too long because we're scared of what people are going to say. I mean, I remember having a conversation with an uncle of mine, and he would say, you know, my ex-husband had changed jobs. This was the second time that he was changing jobs. My brother had changed courses at university. And then he said, don't become a rolling stone. And I said to uncle, but if the person if that's not the right thing for them, they'll be wasting their time. You know, we're not in that old age where you stayed in a job your entire life, you know. So for me, the quicker you find what you're supposed to be doing, but work on not necessarily your I don't like this thing of follow your passion. I think follow the thing that feels the most natural for you to do. Yeah?
I see.
Because that's where God has planted you. Whatever feels like it's the most natural thing for you to do. Like for me, when I left the Ministry of Finance, I just said to myself, I'm just going to continue on my boards because there isn't a position I'm going to apply for that feels right. And it just didn't feel right. So when I tell people, you know what, I'm not in a formal job, but I'm still okay. I'm still able to provide for my kids through this board fees and everything else that I'm doing. But I don't see myself as going into a formal job ever because it just doesn't feel like I'm meant to be in a job. You know, it doesn't feel like I'm meant to be a CFO of an entity. It doesn't, you know, it just feels like it's not the right thing. And you need to be comfortable. You need to be comfortable to kind of make those decisions and not let people drive you into certain things. But go with what feels naturally right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your manifesto, or let me say one of the promises you made, it's you are very big on job creation. And then you made the promise that if you are elected into the presidency, you will create about 500,000 jobs. So how is that? What is your plan to actually for you to be able to achieve that, and especially for the elites that, or the people, or like us that believes that it's not realistic. So how do you plan to do that? Look,
let me at first talk to whether it's realistic or unrealistic. Because we have 34 years of failed policy, and they failed to create the jobs, does not mean that we cannot create the jobs, right? So that's a first. And we have no choice but to create the 500,000 jobs because of the sheer number of people that are employed in the informal. They make up the majority, and which is why we are failing to deliver on housing because people cannot afford the stock of housing that's on the market at the moment, right? So we have no choice. We must create 500,000 jobs. And the fact that they failed to create them does not mean that we cannot create them, and does not make anybody's plan to create these 500,000 jobs unrealistic. So this is how we are going to do them. First of all, we need to match our skilled with our unskilled. We've got a lot of graduates that have come from our vocational training centers, the NIMS, the COSTEFs. And what we need to do is to match them with opportunities. The old government, with its flaws and its segregation policies, got some of the things right. They never had infrastructure that was run down. So we inherited very good infrastructure from them. How did they do it? if we just go back to the way they did it, for some of the things that worked, and don't discard everything, right? So the way they did it is a person graduated from a VTC, and immediately they went onto a list at the Ministry of Works and Transport. So if you did plumbing, you went onto the plumbers list. If you were an electrician, you went onto the electricians list. If you are a painter, you went onto the painters list. If you are a person who is a bricklayer, you went onto the bricklayers list. When there was a light bulb that broke at a school, on the system at the Ministry of Works and Transport, there's already a cost for how much a light bulb costs. Your labor was already costed in, right? All you got was a call that says you are the one that is closest to Concordia. The light bulb is out. We are giving you an order. And you went and fixed and you got paid, right? Now we have moved very basic things to where everything is being tendered, right? And you cannot put it into an advert in a newspaper for 12,000 Namibian dollars to fix a $2,000 door, or even less. Like the things that we are doing don't make sense. They're illogical, but we continue to do them. So that's all that we need to do. So we have a maintenance deficit of 34 years because we are very bad at maintaining infrastructure. Yeah, we've got schools, we've got hospitals, we've got clinics, we've got police stations, we've got government offices that we've built, right? And all I'm saying is let's go back to that system where we put everybody that has graduated from all of these technical schools onto a list. And let's give them orders. They are in that region, they're in that constituency. Something breaks at that school. Let them go and fix it. Painting does not need a tender. Construction of classrooms. They never did tenders for construction of classrooms or even pre-feasibility studies. We're spending 2 million plus on feasibility studies, pre-feasibility studies for a school. All of our schools look the same. All of our classrooms are the same measurements. But yet we're spending money that we shouldn't be spending. So all I'm saying is, let us give opportunities to our people that are skilled. Let's make it the job of that person who's getting the opportunity, who's skilled, to give an opportunity to the person who's unskilled. Yeah? When they leave that site, then they must give them a certificate that says, this person is a painter. This person is a bricklayer. This person is a tiler. This person is a plumber, because they're unskilled. They haven't had the same opportunity to go to a COSTEF or a NIMT or a VTC to get the certificate. But by giving an opportunity to the one that is skilled, the one that can get onto the list, this one that's on the list gives the opportunity. They must employ the other ones that are unskilled. But before they leave that site, they must give them a certificate that says they're able to do this job. Now you have created, the person already has a skill, now you've given them the paper. They can then themselves go get registered on this system. So you kind of build a recurring system. And we already have a budget under our capital budget. It always varies about 8 to 9 billion. And I'm saying, let's take 5 billion of that. Let's stop building new things. Let's deal with the maintenance deficit. Our hostels need work. There's so much work that we need to do on infrastructure that we've already built. And by not attending to infrastructure that we have built, what we are saying, literally, to the taxpayer is we do not value the money that you've given us to build that infrastructure. So that's all that I'm saying. Take 5 billion of your capital budget, deploy that to maintenance so that we can mop up a lot of the people that are on the street to be able to do this maintenance. And we will be doing that for 5 years. Because you've got a 34-year maintenance period that you have to catch up with. How many schools do we have? How many hostels do we have? How many hospitals do we need to fix? How many clinics do we need to maintain? Our museums. We've got so much infrastructure. We can mop up a huge number of people if we just become focused. The second one is also focusing on the VTC graduates, NIMT, and all these other ones that come out of the trade schools. A lot of them are graduating as mechanics. Now, we have graveyards of government vehicles where we buy a vehicle, something small sometimes breaks on that vehicle. Where do we go and park it? Government garage. I've never seen a government plated car at a mechanic shop in Katutura. I've never seen it. Why are we not giving opportunities to people that are running these mechanic shops to fix these vehicles? Yes. Why must we rather just dump these vehicles and go and buy new ones? It's very simple things like that.
So they are dumped there and they're not being used again?
They are dumped there and they're not being used again. If you go to Government Park, you just find vehicles there, the tires are flat, the vehicles are not moving. Around the country, literally, we've got these graveyards of these vehicles. Now, when I was at the Ministry of Finance, the year when we did the budget, we didn't have one cent allocation to purchase of vehicles because we know of this. But now in the current recent budgets, you're seeing we are buying new vehicles again.
Oh.
But all we need to do is fix. Let's fix what we have. And by fixing what you have, that person that you're now giving an opportunity who runs a workshop, who's a mechanic, right? They will employ 1 or 2 other, 3 other people because now they've got work. And government has got the biggest budget. They've got the biggest purse in this country. All you're doing is, instead of buying a new vehicle from a dealership, you're taking your old vehicles that all they need is fixing, and you're saying, young people who are running these mechanic shops, and I don't care where you're running it for, as long as you've got a good workshop and you know what you're doing, we've certified you through our institutions that you can fix a vehicle. Here's a vehicle. We are allocating you 5 vehicles in a month, 10 vehicles in a month, 10 vehicles in a year. That will change that person's business.
Yeah.
They will employ a lot more people. So we're not talking rocket science. These are things that are already in the budget. But we've allocated to buying new cars. It will be cheaper for us to fix these vehicles and create opportunities for young people. And we have a big need for water. In the budget, we've got 2 billion allocated this year, another 2 billion next year. We've just spent 5.5 billion on Nakatel Dam. We're now going into this big desalination plant. I don't know how we're going to transport that water because the gradient from the coast is like this to get to Central. We've got a huge need for water. Everywhere in Namibia, people need water. What is so difficult by saying, I'm going to take my budget that I've allocated for water, and instead of having an excavator dig that trench where the pipe is going to run, I'll put 100 people and give them, this is the number of meters that you must dig today, and you pay that person. So use your wallet to create jobs. Don't use your wallet to ship out taxpayers' money through giving a tender for a person who's going to use the excavator, and you're shipping out taxpayers' money to China because that's the person that you've given the tender. We've got roads that we are building in this country where those roads we've been building for 10 years, 65 kilometers from Okahanja, 70 kilometers from Okahanja, 10 years. I've never come across a road that gets built for 10 years. The one that's going to the airport, it's another 10 years. We started 2014. The one that's between Keetmans and Marienthal, we're going on to 7 years. And just because we want to use machines, we don't want to put people. But our biggest need in this country is jobs.
Jobs, yeah.
So government is spending our taxpayers' money and not creating jobs. For every cent we spend, we must have jobs coming out of that. And the big one for me in terms of infrastructure is water. So I am saying through the Rural Residents Infrastructure Construction Project, which is just focused on water, water harvesting, water storage, water piping, we can easily create 100,000 jobs, easily, because we know there's a need. And we have to do it. But instead of doing it where we are using machines and shipping out money, let's use Namibian hands, people that are crying out and dying for jobs. And you're doing it right there where they are.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's unrealistic. It's just because people have failed to do it. And again, it comes down to just doing the right. It's very simple to do the right thing. And when you haven't been doing the right thing, then for you it's to say it's unrealistic. But you've just failed. You failed at doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So when somebody comes along and says, you have to think about this thing in a different way so that you can have a different outcome, then let's interrogate the how instead of saying it's unrealistic. Yeah, and we have no choice. We have to create 500,000 jobs. So we need to think of what are those ways that we can do it. And for me, it's through this VTC, matching our VTC cost they've named, matching our skilled to our unskilled, matching our skilled to opportunities. We have a need of 2,186 classrooms. Now, why our teacher graduates are not being employed is because we don't have classrooms. Yeah? Oh. So if you construct 2,186 classrooms, that's jobs. That's 2,186,000 jobs for teachers.
Teachers, yeah.
And at the same time, while you are constructing these classrooms, you are creating the construction jobs. So it's really not rocket science. It's just how do you use your biggest purse to ignite the job market? Yeah. And then lastly, the job creators. Government only employs 91,225 Namibians. Yeah. Between the age of 18 and 59, there's 1.8 million of us from the recent survey.
Yeah.
So clearly, government is not the job creator. Who's the job creator in any economy? It's business. But our businesses are stifled because they are survivalist businesses. So I can only employ myself, right? Because from whatever it is that I'm doing, I must provide the bread for myself. I must still be able to restock. So it's really only myself. But if you just say to that business, I am willing, I trust you, I believe you have the potential, you've been doing this business, so under these very bad circumstances, you've still been managing to do business. If I give you capital and I say I trust you, they will be able to create so many other jobs. Now imagine when you are matching the VTC graduate to an opportunity. That guy needs to account for the money. He needs to hire people. He needs to advertise for these people that he's going to be hiring. So what is that? Accounting for the money is an accountant.
Yeah.
The person that's going to be arranging for the interviews, that's your receptionist. The person that's going to be doing the interviews, that's your HR department. So all of a sudden, a person who is just painting schools in a constituency, they've got a whole office because you've empowered them with their opportunity. And then by empowering them with the capital to be able to actually act on that opportunity through the 12 billion Enterprise Namibia Fund, you've made their business sustainable. They can pay their people without worrying, whether I can take on these 5 people to do this job.
Yeah.
You understand? Yeah. So it's basically just saying to Namibians, I trust you to get on with what you need to do. And I know the constraint is capital. I know the constraint is opportunities. And I'm willing to give you those opportunities because it works well for me as a government to have Namibians that are working.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you also emphasize on helping entrepreneurs, especially those in climate resilient agriculture.
Yeah.
So how do you see that sector growing, especially in terms of job creation?
Yeah. Look, I ran a farm. I ran the biggest potato and onion farming operation that was owned by a non-white person in this country. I had a full-time manager, qualified. I had a full-time assistant manager, qualified. I had 12 people permanent. And that was on 40 hectares. We had 2 center pivots, which at any one time we would have planted half-half. So at any one time we only actually had 13.6 hectares under production, but it still employed 14 people. Right? And we were, because I like to innovate, so we quickly went into processing of some of our onions, and we did an onion flake that did really well. So all of a sudden you're going into packaging, right? Somebody can package, so that's additional people that you're employing in your pack house. Yeah? You need the person to invoice when you supply to your fruit and veggies and your tulipamwes and all these other people that you're supplying to. Stampede Farmers Market.
Yeah.
That's an accountant. You need somebody to send out your price list once a week to all these shops. Yeah, that's a marketing person. You need somebody to take the pictures of the produce.
Yeah.
That's a marketing person. So you're creating jobs from something that seems like it's very, very simple, but that thing, agriculture, needs money because you need to sort out irrigation. Namibia is a very hot country.
Yeah.
You cannot do agriculture where you don't have water. And for our retailers, if you supply them today and you can't supply them tomorrow, they don't do business with you. You need to be able to supply them every week, right? And for you to be in production, every week of the year, you need to have water right through.
Yeah.
So that's irrigation. It requires money.
Yeah.
And then you need implements. So if you are wanting to have a higher harvest, you need implements. Those implements need to get pulled by a tractor. If you are wanting to have the best output in terms of yield, and also knowing whatever it is that you're expecting to harvest, you need to have certified seed. That requires money.
Yeah.
So I'll use the example, for instance, when we were in potatoes, it was 570,000 per hectare. And we didn't consider you a serious farmer unless because you had 5 hectares. So just take 570,000 times 5 hectares. How much is that you needed for one cropping cycle, right? So when we give people kind of ideas to get into an industry, but we don't back that up with capital, we are doing them a disservice. So for me, agriculture is the one thing that's going to help us very quickly provide jobs and industrialize, but we need to sort out water. And once you sort out water, you sort out agriculture. Once you sort out agriculture, you're sorting out manufacturing. Once you're sorting out manufacturing, you've got jobs.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just simplifying things, but you've got people that are coming up with policies that have never been in business. They've never run a farming operation, yet they are the ones that are telling you, we want to mechanize and we want to do all these fancy things. Mechanize, modernize, and da-da-da. That's what I heard yesterday from a politician, and a career politician at that. But that person has never been on a farm. They don't know how to grow something. You know, before I started, I grew because somebody spoke to me about, the amount of potatoes that we are bringing in. And for me, I was interested in the kind of experimenting with fiber, bamboo. So I thought, okay, if you can match what we are importing in a lot and get this to be profitable, you can fund the experiment, because nobody wanted to fund the experiment in bamboo. But before I did that, I grew tomatoes in my backyard because I wanted to know that I'm not going to kill whatever it is that I'm growing. And can I grow something? Even if I'm going to employ, can I grow something? And only once I did that did I go into then saying, okay, fine, we can do this. And then we went with the farming operation. But you cannot have people making policies that don't know what farming is about. You cannot have people making policies about business that don't know what are the challenges of business. And this is what we've been doing. We've been voting politicians into positions, and we expect them to solve problems that they don't know what these problems are about and how you solve problems. Yeah?
I see. Yeah. And one industry that is also like immensely, I think, big in Namibia is the energy sector.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the green hydrogen, the solar energy.
Yeah.
Do you see those sectors also working for your government as well?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to job creation and empowering the economy for the country and all that?
Look, I think Namibia should be the energy engine room for the continent, especially our southern continent. We've got Zambia, who started out manufacturing. They are rearing to go, they just don't have power. You've got South Africa that is still going through its power issues and load shedding. You have us, you've got Botswana, you've got DRC, you've got Angola. Our part of our region needs power. Namibia has the highest level of radiation, so we cannot ignore solar. We have uranium, so we cannot ignore nuclear. We have the falls, so there must be some hydro mix in our power supply when we're talking about power.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, green hydrogen is something that I feel has been hyped up. It's delivering the jobs too late. I am very aware that if we don't think about it correctly, we will have the same type of jobs that we have coming out of the solar plants that we now have, which is basically security guard jobs. Because that's all. Once the plant goes up for a solar plant, it's just somebody making sure that those panels don't get stolen. Yeah, so with green hydrogen that we're wanting to do with wind predominantly, in terms of energy and a little bit of component of solar, I see the jobs that we are creating as shit cleaners of these windmills. And for me, those are not decent jobs. So green hydrogen, I do not understand too well. So I'm not putting my bets on green hydrogen. But I definitely think those three things that I've spoken about, solar, nuclear, as well as, and there's now mini nuclear reactors, right? As well as hydro, are things that we need to consider and seriously consider them, because we can become a power player in the sub-region in supplying power. We cannot ignore, I mean, I always thought, why is it that when I drive to the north, the sun hits you differently?
Yeah.
So there must be a reason. There's never any mistake in any creation work of the Lord. There's never any mistake. We are just missing it. We are missing what is it that we are supposed to be getting from the sun. The sun is the biggest power source in the world. And we're missing it totally.
Yeah.
Our desert at night is cool, meaning there's moisture. So we can generate water from our desert, because it's so cool in the evenings.
Okay.
You know? But I think we just need to become more open-minded about some of the things that we can do. But my bet is not on green hydrogen. I think there's been too much hype. And we're not doing it for ourselves. We're not doing it for the region. We're doing it for the Europeans. Europe got into trouble because the war between Russia and Ukraine, now all of a sudden they didn't want to buy gas from Russia. So where's the country that they look to? Come on, man. They came here, they colonized, they took our land. Now they want to take our energy to fill their needs. That for me feels wrong. Morally it feels wrong.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no problem.
Ethically it feels wrong. You know? And we're giving them access to places where we as Namibians don't have access to. We've been praising ourselves to say we've got, you know, this protected area. All of a sudden it's green hydrogen, you can go there.
Yeah.
Yeah? But for me, driving through the Spiersgebied, there are signs there. I can stay on the road. You know, it's a national park, but I must stay on the road. But for a green hydrogen company that is going to supply power to Europe, by all means, go there. That's wrong.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's wrong.
Yeah. and I'm actually now it's like, I think one of the major thing that we have is now when you speak of corruption in the country.
Yeah.
And we have all these policies and one thing that I heard is that most of these policies, they don't protect our resources.
No.
We don't have policies that actually protect our resources for us to own them.
No, not at all. So our constitution, when you read it, especially when it comes to natural resources, reads right until you get to the end. It says all land, water, natural resources, anything above and below the surface, something that is in our territorial water belongs to the state, except which is already owned. That's how it's worded. So there are certain ways that we can approach it. So our constitution kind of says something, but then it kind of takes it away. So if somebody already owns it, then it doesn't belong to the state. But there are countries that have been very successful at making sure that their resources benefit their people.
Yeah.
Now, there is one country that we are now leaning towards and kind of learning from, where it hasn't benefited its people, and I'm wondering, why are we wanting to learn from that country? It has not benefited their people. You know, we had somebody sent a delegation to Angola, and sitting president went, but Angola is not, I mean, that's not the poster child for success of managing resources. But you've got your Norways that have shown us how do you do it. You've got your Qatars that have shown us how do you do it. And it all comes into what is your take from a tax point of view as a country, and how do you deploy those taxes? So at the moment we are getting 3.49% of all of our total taxes coming from mining. It's ridiculous. Mining contributes the least amount of taxes, income taxes, 2.95 billion.
But why?
So non-mining companies are giving us 1.4 billion. Diamond mining companies are giving us 1.4 billion. Non-diamond mining companies are giving us 1.4 billion. So that's 2.95 billion in total. Non-mining companies, all our other companies that are not related to mining are giving us 8.4 billion. You are contributing the rest, 62 or something in between billion.
Wow.
So our tax regime when it comes to mining companies is totally off the mark. Totally off the mark. Now, I come from an experience where I was a partner that did audits. I was leading energy and natural resources portfolio at KPMG. So I know there's management fees that get charged by a lot of these companies where they are transferring out their profits from Namibia into another country that has a lower tax rate, and we're not getting the benefit of that. I know that the royalties that they pay, they deduct before they pay income taxes. Yeah? So we need to change our tax regime when it comes to mining. Yeah, so we can benefit our people.
Okay, one of the also we have corruption in the country, and that's not even like a secret or anything.
Yeah.
So with your new government, how do you plan to kind of wipe out corruption? And you have already been in positions where in government positions, especially with the Ministry of Finance, and you're seeing how things were working, and you're saying there's already a system that's already set up for things not to work.
Yeah.
So how do you plan to kind of dismantle that machine, or kind of just to wipe up corruption and to make things work?
Yeah. Okay, so firstly, I think it's a recognition that corruption is a crime. Yeah. So I say, just because somebody is stealing in a suit and stealing in an office does not change it from the fact that somebody has stolen. Yeah. And if somebody has stolen, why do we need to have a different process for a person who steals in an office and in a suit? Let's first decide whether they can be investigated. Let's first decide whether they can be prosecuted. No. When somebody steals, you do an investigation. You know it's them. You arrest them. They go to jail. Yeah? So for me, that's the way that it needs to be done. But there is a second thing, which is negligence. So we've got a combination of the one that's corrupt, and then we've got the element of the one who is negligent, right? And they pretend they don't know what they're doing, but they know exactly what they're doing, and you can't tell whether the person is actually negligent or the person is just an outright thief. So if you prosecute for both, then you catch the one that is pretending to not know, but is wasting government resources, and the one who's actually just an outright thief at the same time. But for me, the important thing is to acknowledge that corruption is theft. And just brand it like that. Don't give it a different outfit. It's like wanting to put lipstick on a pig and wanting to make a pig look nice. You'll never get a pig to look nice. A pig is a pig. Yeah? So if you are a thief, you are a thief. Whether you are wearing a suit, whether you are doing it in an office, or whether you are stealing somebody's car, whether you are hijacking somebody, you are a thief. That's it. So just do that. So for me, I know for sure that our prisons are going to be full. And I'll not be scared. We will not arrest you and have you in jail for 5 years and deciding what we're going to do with you because we're too scared of how we're going to get implicated. Our prisons are going to be full, and they're going to be very full of people in suits. We have to do it. We have to clean up. And we have to clean up fast. Because if you don't clean up fast, then you are stuck with a slow system that's going to be cutting you at the knees while you're trying to reform.
Yeah.
And what I found, for instance, we wanted to implement a wonderful project, and we were going to pay about 5 million to reform our payment system. And it was going to be done by one of the big four firms. Good work. I was so excited about it. But believe you me, after we went contract awarded, nobody made it to the meetings because they knew it was going to change the entire system. So whoever was eating, even from the bottom, would not be eating anymore. They just didn't pitch up for the meetings. So the consultants had nobody to consult with. Oh. So the project died a slow death. Sure. So to overhaul this system, you need somebody who is not scared. You also need somebody who understands how they've been skimming the system. So I'll give an example. Ministry of Home Affairs put out a contract, and they're ordering passports for refugees. 300,000 passports for refugees coming in from Russia. You're asking them, okay, you've already signed this contract. Now I'm getting this invoice, I need to pay it. But please tell me, how many passports did you issue for refugees in the last 5 years? Then they tell you 300 or 150, some ridiculous amount. So why are you ordering 300,000 passports?
Sure.
So you also need somebody who's got an inquisitive mind, but you also need somebody who wants to see the rot out of the system. You cannot have the same person who's corrupted your system. And for me, do you know how I used to tell who was involved?
Yeah.
Where would my letter stop?
Oh.
So if I wrote a letter highlighting something of somebody who did something, I would tell who is it, what level is involved by where the letter would stop. So to deconstruct the system, you need somebody who has got a high level of integrity. You need to have somebody who's not part of the machinery of building that corrupt system. You need to have somebody who's not afraid. And for me, I'm saying both the negligent and the outright thief both need to go to jail.
Now, do we have
and we will have jail cells that are full of people that we had a high regard for, but are thieves.
Nah. Now, do you think we have more people that are fearless, that are capable to actually put those people in jail, people like you, that will be willing to work with you?
Interesting question. There are a lot of people that are not bold. There really are not a lot of bold people around. So when I had this incident of, I literally had somebody calling me and saying, I've got an invoice and the Ministry of Finance owes me this amount, and why are you holding my payment? So I was like, we don't hold payments. We've got a structure, right? So Mondays we pay this, Tuesday we pay this, Wednesday we pay this, Thursday we pay this, Friday we pay that. And if your invoice fits in that, maybe Monday is foreign payments, Tuesday is maybe refunds, Wednesday is maybe local payments. So we were putting money into the economy literally every day. And we need to do it because we are the biggest spender. How can you tell me that there's an invoice that's not been paid and it's been outstanding for a long time? It's budgeted and you've got the contract and everything else. So I call this file. Then I find out, firstly, it's not the Ministry of Finance that owes them. It's another ministry. Secondly, all their invoices were being paid 3 days after the invoice comes into the Ministry of Finance. And now it's been sitting here for 7 days. It's a week. It's going through the normal process. And the normal process feels too long for them. So I then call in security. So we've got investigators at the Ministry of Finance. And I say, I want to find out who of my people is involved in making sure, I want to find out who of my people is involved in making sure that this person gets ahead in the queue. And how have they been getting ahead in the queue? You know? So you highlight all of these things, everybody knows something here is wrong, investigation never comes to an end.
You see where it stops.
Yeah, you see where it stops. You don't get an answer, right? So there are some brave people, but unfortunately our system, because people fall into the trap of, and if you don't have controls, you make a thief from a person who was previously not a thief. So when they see everybody else kind of conniving and shortcutting the system, then they do the same. And people are not brave to speak up and say, but this is wrong. And yeah, I really have not come across a lot of brave people.
I see.
Yeah.
So we have these issues, a lot of issues in the country. There are topics that are being spoken about, and people that are also like, we have abortion. We have homosexuality as well. I think we can take them at the same time if possible. So you being very faith-driven and a believer. So what are your take on that? Because I saw an article, I think, in the newspaper, and it was not yesterday or the day before, like politicians want to be voted by homosexuals, but they don't want to support them. So what is your take on that?
Look, okay, let's take the abortion one first. I think abortion comes with a lot of psychological impact on the person that goes through that, and sometimes unknowing, right? Because they feel that they've been put in a situation and they're trying to come up with a solution, and sometimes they don't have the right guidance. And they realize much, much later on in life when they have to deal with the consequences of that. And for me, the protection of life starts at conception. And our constitution protects life. So for me, it's really just about defining where does life start, because our constitution protects life. And for me, as a believer, life starts at conception. And on the right of the LGBT plus community, look, that community is dealing with a lot of issues within themselves. So I've got a lot of either friends that have got people that are of that community, and kind of the high level of attempted suicides. Generally, if my son comes and talks to me about an attempted suicide amongst a group of their friends, the first question I ask, is this person that way inclined? And the answer in most instances is yes, right? And that comes from, it's actually a passage that I even read this morning about how the Lord will give you a debased mind when you use a body for what it is not intended, men going after men and women going after women. So I think they already have so much to deal with mentally, because their mind is not in kind of in its normal way. But for me, it's not really about discriminating against a particular group of people. I know for sure that as Namibia, we've got a lot of challenges, and one of them is not a human rights violation challenge, right? You don't see Namibia being reported to say, you know, Namibia is persecuting this class of people or this group of people. That's not the tag that our country has. So for me, it's a non-starter conversation. It's a non-starter conversation. And they've been saying, you know, leave government out of our love life. So let government stay out. I mean, what you do in private is your thing. Let government stay out. So why do you want people that are going for government positions to come out and say where they stand on this issue? Because you've said let government stay out. So we are staying out. And for me, it's a non-starter. We've got so many other things to deal with.
Yeah.
And when I've gone around this country, I've not had a person who is gay come up to me and say, this is an issue for me, because the issues that Namibians are dealing with is how do they survive? Where do they get bread for their children? You know, those are the issues that we are dealing with. So let's focus. Let's not get distracted.
Interesting.
We must focus.
Yeah. So in terms of Namibian foreign policy, so what are your priorities for engaging with the international partners to attract investment and foster economic growth?
Okay, so I will certainly position Namibia as an export-led country by investing in our businesses, our local businesses, and giving them capital, so that we can produce and go into export. So that will be the thrust of our foreign engagements. It will be predominantly trade focused. And we've got, in our constitution, it's very clear, we're supposed to be non-aligned. Yeah? Friend to all, seeking peace. Non-aligned. Which then means that you cannot go out and stop, for instance, what we've done with Israel, and stop a vessel in a war that you're not involved in. Your constitution is so clear, you're supposed to be non-aligned. It's clear, it's in the constitution.
So we are violating
the constitution. Yeah, by taking sides. It's very clear in our constitution. So for me, the thrust of our foreign policy and our foreign dialogue will be on trade, and how do we get this country economically to move, and opening up markets and securing markets for us so we can export, and trying to secure as many duty-free markets for Namibian products. That will be the thrust. And then making sure that we are in alignment with our constitution of being non-aligned. Yeah.
I see. And how do you plan to position Namibia as a country as a regional leader in maybe bodies like the SADC, the African Union, and all that?
Yeah. So the one thing that we've done really, really well is we've always paid our contributions to all of these bodies. Now, you've got some countries that do not pay their contributions, but that's the one thing that Namibia has at least done well.
So we have contributions that we pay?
Oh yeah, our membership bill and subscription bill is actually one of the highest. And we make subscriptions, and we make these payments to all of these institutions that we are subscribed to, including SADC, including AU, including any other UN, all of these. Yeah, we make contributions. And mind you, some of these institutions have got offices in our country and they do not pay income tax, they do not pay VAT and the rest, but we make our contributions. So at least that's something that we've done well. So for me, in terms of sort of the regional bodies and the continental bodies, regional bodies, I really want us to become closer economically. So to open up trade with as many of our SADC members as possible, because it is a development community. We are saying this is a Southern African development community. Yeah. So are we having really conversations around development? I attended one of the SADC meetings because Namibia was asked to chair the finance committee. Sadly, the conversations in that meeting was really more about the minutes and the structure of the minutes and the wording of the minutes. 75%, if not 80% of the meeting. Yes. We have the budget of SADC that is funded mostly 90% of the projects are funded by the EU. So the agenda is being set by the EU. The same with the AU. So we need to get African countries to fund these institutions themselves so that we can determine the agenda. So that's the role that I see Namibia playing, to say, guys, even with our economy, with the size of our population, we've still been able to make our contribution so that we can contribute towards determining the agenda. Now, how do we get everybody else to do that? And taking leadership so that we can determine our own agenda as an African continent. So that's the role that I see Namibia playing.
Impressive.
Yeah.
And I just want us to go back when we are coming, to go back a little bit, while we're actually even at the end of our interview, with the basic income grant.
Yeah.
You spoke of the, if I'm not mistaken, of the allowance that from the age of 18
to 59.
To 59.
Yeah.
So how much is that going to be, and where is the money going to come from?
Yeah, good question. I mean, that's the question that everybody's asking.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question. So it is budgeted to be 1,715. It's universal. And there's a reason why it's universal between the age of 18 and 59. The moment you make something universal and you don't have qualification criteria, it brings down drastically the administration cost of that program to zero. Now, all of our grant systems and our grant allowances that we give have got a burden administration cost of about 40%, which then means the number of people that you can help are significantly reduced, because you have an office that a person must go and prove that they meet the criteria to access that grant. So the moment you make it universal and you say the only determiner is your age, we're going to determine your age based on your ID that we've got at the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Yeah.
We don't need you to come into an office. We don't need to set up an office. It's already there. And all we need to figure out is the disbursement mechanism. So there's no administration cost. You can help a lot more people. It will cost about 2.6 billion a month and 32 billion if I don't take out the VAT a year. We currently, in the current budget, there's and it's growing every year, the transfers and subsidies that we are making out of government without any requirement of accountability, straight transfer, is 27 billion. Yeah. Then we've got an operational budget, which now includes the salaries that we pay, and we've got a disproportionate benefit of your budget, of your taxpayers' money going to the 91,000 people that are working in the government of Namibia, even healthcare. Their medical aid, which is close to 3 billion, is 26% in comparison of your budget for the entire country that must benefit 2.5 million people. And there are only 91,000. So your total allocation of health is 8.9 billion. They are receiving 3 billion. They're 91,000. You are 22.5 million people. So in total, it works out to something like 33,000 per person the whole year if they needed to access medical services, while for you, it works out to 1,400. So we need to fix that alignment in terms of who gets to benefit from the, and I've told you already where our taxes are coming from. It's coming from Namibians, struggling Namibians, whether you're working, whether you're not working. And Namibians just kind of think about income tax. They say, no, we've got such a low tax base in terms of taxpayers. No. When you're in the shop, 15% is going to VAT, it's tax going to government. When you're recharging your phone, it's 15% is going to tax. When you're fueling up your car, there's a fuel levy. You know, you're paying property taxes. There's so many taxes that you're paying. So whether you're working, whether you're not working, whether you are old, whether you are young, whether you are poor, whether you are rich, you are contributing to the tax of this country. But the disproportionate benefiter is the person who is employed by government. We need to write that. So the way they benefit is we've got this ongoing cycle of S&T. We've got workshops that we are holding. We've got politician entertainment. We've got the amount of money that we are spending on rental of buildings where people are not even in. So, and I know one particular building that the Ministry of Finance is renting, but there's no people there. So, and then we've got this huge subscriptions that I'm talking about. You know, there's Africa Habitat. We are contributing a subscription of 3 million. That's just one of them. Yes.
3 million.
How many houses can we build from 3 million?
And
it's a subscription. If you look at our subscription bill, it will scare you.
What do we get from those bodies? Like, is it just the meetings that we go to?
It's the meetings. So it's a person who's getting S&T. Literally, they don't even bring back reports. So that's where the money is going to come from. So I have gone and I have set a whole weekend and I've gone through subscriptions and I've said, what are the subscriptions that we can do without for a period of 3 years? It's not going to break that subscription if we don't do it. If we do not contribute to Africa Habitat 3 million a year. If we don't contribute to RCC, where people are sitting at home and they're not working because we've taken a cabinet decision to close RCC down. 55 million people that are not working are getting 55 million from your budget every year. Epangelo Mining, which is in an industry where other mining companies are making money, we are paying their salaries, 5 million. Why?
Sure.
We are making contributions to a private hospital, 234 million.
Private hospital?
Yes, it's not a hospital that's run by government, but we are in our budget, in that 8.9 billion, there's 234 million going to a hospital. Right? Your machines, your diagnostic machines that we're going to be buying this year is 150 million because we are putting 234 million into a private hospital.
But our hospitals don't have the equipment and the machineries.
And the budget for the machines is 150 million. To this one hospital is 234 million. So it's not that the money is not there. We just need to get it from all these pockets where it's misallocated. And for a period of 3 years, it's not going to break the government of Namibia to say, your priorities are wrong. Give this money back to the people that put it in there. They'll have better use to it. And they need it.
Yeah.
They need it. And either we pay the price of inaction, which is building more prison cells, having a high health bill, dealing with diseases of poverty that we've spoken about earlier, dealing with the consequences of poverty by putting people in jail, building checkpoints to check these people that are stealing, or we say, as a society, let's fix the causes of these things so that this money, the price that we are paying for inaction is already too high.
Yeah. So it's a decision that we have to make.
It's a decision that we have to make.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what do you think are the most important takeaways that people should take away from your campaign? Your New Way campaign. Yeah, New Way campaign.
Yeah. Look, for me, it is, we will be taking such a big risk to renew the mandate of 34 years of failed policy. The second biggest risk we will be taking is by voting for candidates that come from offshoots of a failed administration. We need to get to a point where we invest in the potential of Namibians. And investing, like the word, is when you're putting money where your mouth is. So 12 billion into our business people, into our local business people, right? Through the Enterprise Namibia Fund. We need to rebuild the trust in government. That government will react when you get into a situation. Your government is there for you. It's got your back. We need to rebuild that trust. It's not there. We can do that through the 1,750 Namibian dollars for a review period of 3 years. Yeah. Thirdly, we need every cent of your taxpayers' money that we spend to create jobs, which is through the 500,000 goal that we've set to create jobs. So those are the three things that I think we need to focus on. So it's investing in the potential of the Namibian people. It is restoring the trust that we have in government, that our government is able to be there for Namibian people. And we have to, every cent we spend of your money must create a job. Yeah.
Job creation is like a main thing, and it's like the main solution.
Yeah. And every policy we have around land must deliver housing, urban land, so we can deliver housing for our families.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Ally, for coming on Africa Speak.
Thank you.
So what will you say is, like, maybe lastly, what is your vision for Namibia as a country, and how do you want to be remembered, to be seen as a Namibian president?
Yeah. So my vision for Namibia is a Namibia that trusts Namibians and puts Namibians first, above anything. That is the vision that I have for Namibia, that every policy we take, and we will take, will be about putting Namibians first. Namibians have got no other place to go. This is home. It's about how do we put Namibians first. And if we just do that one right thing, then everything else will fall in place. We will not export taxpayers' money because we are all focused on about putting Namibians first. That's my vision. So that we can build this vibrant society, in a really thriving and flourishing economy. That's my vision for Namibia. And then in terms of what's the legacy that I want to live, I want to leave a legacy where people matter. Elections are about people. When you are providing leadership, it's about people. People must come and be front and center. Now, we are in this mindset where it's easier to invest in something that is cement and brick. That's why we are building all these roads. Yeah, anything we can touch, but the softer side we don't want to deal with. So the legacy that I want to leave at the end of my term is a Namibia that cares for people and does everything for a person, where we value a person's life over animals. We are allowing our people to be shot at the border because they are supposedly poaching. So we are taking a human's life, allowing the Botswana Defence Force to shoot our people, take their lives over an animal. Yeah? We are putting people in prison for poaching animals. It's time we start to value the life of a human being. So that's the legacy that I want Namibians to remember me for, is having put human first and Namibians first.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ally, for actually coming on Africa Speak. And I think this is actually the end of our interview, unless there is something else that you want to mention that we have not mentioned.
Thank you so much for the time. And we've had a lovely, lovely conversation.
Okay, thank you so much.